Hey everybody, I'm Amanda with DevExpress and welcome to Launch Week and today's webinar, What's New for Windows version 16.2, presented by DevExpress CTO Julian Bucknall and DevExpress Technical Evangelist Paul Usher. In this session, learn about the new products and features shipping for our Windows platforms. See the new features of the diagram control for Winforms and WPF, WPF Chart's new 3D view, thumbnails and marquee zoom with the Winforms and WPF PDF viewer, and more. This session is being recorded and it will be made available on our DevExpress YouTube channel later today. We will also do a live Q&A at the end of this presentation. Just type your questions in the GoToWebinar control panel at any time throughout the broadcast. All right, thank you so much for joining us. I will now hand things over to Paul and Julian.
Thank you, Amanda, and good morning, everyone. Welcome to Launch Week. Now, Julian, version 16.2.
Indeed. Good morning or good evening or good night, everyone. I can't actually say that, can I? Good night, everyone. Anyway, yes, 16.2, it is launch week. We launched yesterday morning, my time, or whatever time it was for you. So people have been downloading it and have been using it and have been playing around with it, upgrading their applications and so on and so forth. Today, Paul and I are going to be talking about Winforms, WPF, and UWP, but I think we're going to do it slightly differently this time.
Absolutely. So instead of listening to you say, I've got that for Winform, for WPF every time I mention something, we're going to switch it so that you get to present WPF first.
So I should have changed the slide deck to put WPF first. Yeah, Winforms. Whatever.
It's okay. Mixing it up.
Yeah, I know. So what's new in WPF? Now, as in previous releases, we've kind of concentrated on improving and enhancing the current controls. Nevertheless, those enhancements are pretty major. Indeed, one of them, the 3D charts, which you see there, I'd count as a new control altogether. Now, I'm going to basically repeat a warning I made last time. Totally new controls in our major releases are going to be fewer in number than in past. The problem, such as it is that new controls usually take an awful long time to design, develop, implement, test. You're expecting full-featured controls from us rather than some kind of initial restricted control that then gets refined. An example of this is that fourth item there, the PDF viewer. We've had it now for, what, 2 major releases? This is the 3rd major release of the PDF viewer. Is that right, Paul, do you think?
Yeah, so just over 2 years.
So it's been refined over a couple of releases. But you can imagine what it would have been like. We'd have had to, work on it for 18 months before releasing it. But anyway, without further ado, here's what's new in WPF. First up is the diagram control. Lots of enhancements in that one, and I'm going to basically leave that one for Paul. He's going to describe it in Winforms, and the same things happened with WPF. So I won't go into details here, just throwing you that curveball there, Paul.
Thank you.
Now, this 3D charts, that's the second thing on the list there. That's I'm going to call it a new control. It's not, I mean, it's part of the charting suite. But as you'll see in a moment when I demo it, it's a highly performant chart that helps you visualize your 3-dimensional data in 3D. Yes. Grid control, a few enhancements here, a couple of great new features though. We've had fixed columns for a while. So imagine what it'd be like now with fixed rows. We've added a new user-oriented feature from Excel, I believe, a much better tabbed filter definition pop-up. We'll see that in a moment too. As with Winforms, the PDF viewer will gain thumbnails and a pager. The PDF viewer is becoming a pretty good control all round. We've been doing a lot of performance enhancements. I believe, Paul, you've been talking about that on the community site in a blog post or something.
Absolutely, and it just goes to show what's gone into, or what goes into some of the controls that we build. And I've got to say, and I'll talk about it a little bit more when we get to the PDF viewer, but the pager and the thumbnail view and the marquee zoom were two big things that I pushed for, and the team at one point pushed back and said they're quite large enhancements and you can't have both. Which one do you want? And I sort of, I want both. So they've done a stellar job in bringing those things. And yeah, there's just so much. PDF is, I think, our esteemed leader once said, it is a rabbit hole. It's once you start going down. So
yes, indeed, it is. There's so many. PDF has been growing up for years, so there are so many little nooks and crannies that we have to basically support.
Well,
anyway,
I think the specification is about 2,500 pages.
Yeah, I know, it's nuts. Is it a PDF, do you know? Anyway, one of my favorites, moving right along from that, is the spreadsheet control. This is it's one of those points where I slap on some solo violin music and talk about my early days with Lotus 123.
Yeah, this is where I press mute and take over.
Exactly. Anyway, the biggest feature here for me is two-way binding. It's just brilliant. You can bind a worksheet or a specific range of cells to a standard data source, and that binding works in both ways. It's two-way binding for both reading and updating of data. Even better, that data source can itself be a range of cells in the spreadsheet. Your grid can access it just as easily as a table in your database. And we've also added the ability to provide page headers and footers for when you print the worksheet. Some very important new enhancements there. Now, MVVM, I won't go into it here since it deserves its own webinar. We'll have to talk about that. MVVM framework has gained the beta of a module injection framework. I wrote about this recently in a blog post on our community site, so if you want more details, go over there after this presentation and see what we've done. We won't be showing that here. On the reporting front, the report designer gains a chart designer. So for charts that are going to be displayed inside your reports. There's also page thumbnails, a table of contents bit, sub-bands, and so on. And finally, there's a whole slew of new and what I might call minor features. Too many to go into here, so again, please go to our What's New page to learn about them, or download the install and have a look through the demo center, which is what I'm actually going to do now. Let's see some of these new features in action. So
yeah, no more PowerPoint.
So first of all, let's, because I'm sloppy, I didn't have this on the right screen, WPF demos. And what we're going to do here, first up, is the one I'm particularly enamored of, shall we say, is the new 3D chart control. So let me show you roughly what it's going to be looking like. This is doing some real-time data generation. So it's showing you particularly how performant this is. Now on my screen it looks smooth and wonderful. I don't know what it looks like over GoToWebinar and all the rest of it.
It's looking really quite nice. I mean, obviously we're losing a little bit of smoothness with the interwebs and the hosting on GTM, but it looks like it's alive. Yes,
it does. It's weird. It's like a sheet blowing in the wind, this particular diagram. Anyway, things to notice is you can, there is the projection on the bottom here. We can also project it onto the top of the screen, top of the chart, I should say. Using my mouse, I can grab hold of the window and move it around, so I can basically look into how this particular chart is varying with time and how the data changes. Let's quickly jump over to another one. So here on this particular demo, we're showing something which looks like
Topography.
Topography, that's the word I was looking for. The topological maps are a big thing for this kind of surface plot. So this gives you an idea of what a particular geophysical representation of an area of land looks like, and we're basically showing you that with a gradient at the moment. So below sea level here is blue. I'm going to guess it's presumably underwater, this particular thing, and as we go up it gets higher and becomes redder and redder. And as you can see, as I move my mouse over here, not only do I have the ability to look from underneath, but also the ability to look at various points and see where I am, what they are. So 3D charting is all about 3 dimensions of it. Well, duh. X, Y, and Z, or Z. And here we're showing a gradient for different values of the Z-axis and the Z-axis. We can show it as a stripe instead. Instead of this continuous gradient, a stripe is more layered, if you like. Image, we're projecting an image on top of the chart, and a solid look as well. So we're getting, kind of the light source is over here somewhere, and so on and so forth. So as you notice, as I do this, it's extremely performant. There's no messing around, no haltiness. We're just displaying the graph in real time. Here we're showing, normally when you have this kind of surface map, you only have a limited set of data points. And so what we're showing here is the triangulation we can do for you to show a more smooth look to those data points. We assume there's, between the data points is a smooth curve, gradient, whatever you'd like to call it. And as you increase the number of interpolations you do, the whole thing becomes a lot smoother with the same number of data points, essentially.
Julian.
Yeah.
What's some real-world examples where you'd use this type of charts?
Well, obviously we jumped on one early on just then, and that's some kind of your geosciences, your geophysical look and feel. You have essentially a topological map that you're trying to reproduce from something printed in a book, and you want to see what it really looks like once it's displayed in such a form. There's obviously mathematics, statistics, and so on and so forth. Essentially, wherever you have a set of points which are defined by 3 separate dimensions, there you're going to use this kind of map completely. So mathematics, geosciences, topological maps, contours, and so on and so forth. Here we're doing some mathematical examples. This is kind of fun. I had to look up what sync was. I've got a mathematics degree. I didn't know what sync was. It's sine x over x. Anyway, here we have a kind of cute-looking diagram, a cute-looking chart, and as you can mess around with these various mathematical functions and see what they look like in a 3D environment. And we can change the aspect ratio here to make it squeeze it along the X or along the Y, or maybe squeeze it on the Z or Z axis. So we also have, and personally speaking, I tend not to like these kind of charts, but so we have a 3D chart series view. So the bars are essentially points on a surface, and the height of the bar is the measurement that we're doing in this particular example. So we have box bars, we have pyramids, we have octagons, if you really wanted to go that way, which almost look like pencils. But again, you can move the chart around, you can see them. I find it hard to visualize what the data is representing here. That's my main beef, if you like, with this particular view. Bubble series, this is a much better view of some three-dimensional data. In fact, we have four-dimensional data here. We have the three dimensions you see, the petal length, sepal width, but each bubble has a size, which is the fourth dimension. So here we can see some more interesting, if you like, representation of 4D data rather than 3D data. You can display it as cubes, but I don't think it works as well in this particular example. So bubble series, and there's a point series as well. Here we're showing, I always get confused. So this is the highest luminosity stars from the sun, and as you see, you can see the chart here. We're displaying it on a sphere, and the highest luminosity stars, in fact, is the Milky Way, as you see here. So it's kind of a nice, interesting scientific look at some data, and what I'm trying to get across here is you're visualizing some kind of data, but the chart is making it more interesting for you because you can, rotate it. You can have a look at different areas of that surface chart, essentially. So 3D charts, wonderful. If you need them, we've got them. If you don't need them, then play around with them just for fun, just to see what it's like. Now I'm going to jump over to the data grid. First of all, the fixed rows in the data grid. So we've had fixed columns for a while. Here we have the ability to fix data at the top of the grid and at the bottom of the grid. So in the middle here, as I scroll through, the top and the bottom stay fixed. And if I say, I don't really want to look at Oracle anymore, let's take it out of that fixed row. And so it's now disappeared. Maybe let's move IBM up to the top. As you see, it's kind of fun. It's if you need this kind of functionality, I would say mostly here we're showing important items at the top, important rows at the top, but certainly you can have, do your own headers or something like that, even though headers work. So fixed rows. The other thing I want to show you with the grid is the tabbed filtering. So let me jump over here. What we have here is fairly boring grid, I'll admit. We have an order date, and we have a filter item, filter icon, I should say, on the order date. If I click on that, I get a little pop-up. And we have a tab here, one showing the values which you want to filter for. So at the moment this is easy enough. You can just select which values you want, and you can just click and so on and so forth. But in general, if you don't want individual values like this, you want to nip over and say, well, I want everything next week. And here we've basically taken the filtering that's available in Excel, and we provided a set of rules for each data type that you might want to be filtering by. So here we're in a date column, so the filter rules here are all about filtering for dates. So it makes sense to have an is next week or something like that. So here we are. We're just showing the values, or the rows, I should say, 31 rows, which appear next week in the order date. So if I go to region, the filter values are fairly obvious. You just have the various filter rules. We can say, so notice we don't have any date-like things anymore. We have begins with and between or something like that. Actually, the region is fairly boring. Let's jump over to the country. Yeah, let's do that. Oh, we didn't implement that particular thing over there. Anyway, so, whoops, I've just dropped my glass of water all over my desk. Let's now have a quick look at the PDF viewer. PDF viewer is...
You're doing swimmingly well.
Swimmingly well, yes. Okay, let me just mop that up a little bit. Okay. Data Grid PDF Viewer. Let's have a look at that, at the new features in the PDF Viewer. As I mentioned early on, we have thumbnails. Now, when we're actually generating the thumbnails of what the pages look like. So I want to emphasize the importance of the changes we've made to performance for the PDF Viewer. We've done a lot of work over the past 6 months to improve performance, and as you can see here, we're generating the thumbnails for the pages as we use the thumbnail pane. I can actually grow the thumbnails as well, so again we're seeing how quickly we can generate those thumbnails as and when we go through, and as I can just flip from page to page in this manner. I believe you were saying to me earlier on that JPX is a big deal.
Well, the example document we now provide there calls out to some really important aspects of PDF and the standard. So the JPX file format, you've got the JPEG-2 format,
there we go.
the transparencies. There's so much work that has gone on to make sure that the transparencies are done correctly, right, and still maintaining that performance. So, you know, PDF has been one of my passions since I started with the company 4 years ago, and it's, yeah, I love the work that the team continues to do. And in fact, one of the messages in the question panel so far is just gratitude for the continuous work that we're putting into PDF. It's right, something that's become so ingrained in workflows and businesses, and I think it's phenomenal. So,
yeah. The other thing to note here is that we have a new page navigation feature for PDF. So I can go to the previous page or the next page, or I can just type in whichever page I particularly want to see. So PDF, the viewer control, remember this is a control, you'll be putting this in your applications, is growing and growing to be more and more full-featured compared with, let me see, open source PDF viewers, applications and so on and so forth. But here we can actually put it in your application. Now let's take a quick look at the spreadsheet. As I said, the big thing for me is two-way binding. Now what we have here is we have a spreadsheet at the top, spreadsheet control at the top, we have a grid at the bottom. They're both displaying the same data from the same data source. So if I go to a particular cell here and I decide that, you know, this value should be something very different, and I press enter, notice it gets changed in the grid because the underlying data source has changed. And if I go over here and I say, okay, let's change the value in the grid, it gets changed up in the spreadsheet as well. So two-way data binding. We are basically binding data from the spreadsheet to the grid and vice versa. It's pretty amazing.
Cool.
Next up is encryption. We've added encryption to saving and loading spreadsheets. So here's an important spreadsheet we can't really have anybody just opening and taking a look at, so let's give it a really hard to guess password, and I'm going to save it under some strong encryption as an XLSX file, and it's going to open it automatically in Excel. I think it's going to come up on another, oh, we'll save it as that. Yes, I've done this before, and it's going to come up on another, oh no, here, Excel. And automatically Excel says it's protected. What is the password? So I type in that really hard to guess password, and it opens up, and here we are. Without that, the spreadsheet would not be opened in Excel at all. So let's just delete that. I don't want to save any information there. So encryption is there, And what else have we got? Print titles, yes. Where are they? There we go. Print titles, you've got a spreadsheet, you want to print it. You want to have the same header and footer on every page, or maybe things like page numbers appearing in the footer, or things along those lines. So here I have a simple looking spreadsheet. There's some blurb, there's some dots, there's it's essentially our price list. Oh, okay. Now we're going to
comparison matrix.
Yes, that was the word I was looking for. So now I want to print it. So let's have a quick look at the page setup for this. The page is going to be on A4. Yeah, I don't want A4. I want letter. And it's going to be landscape or portrait. What do you think? I'm going to go for portrait. Margins. Here we are. I can set margins for this particular page, and the header and footer. Okay, let's see. We have subscriptions typed down at the bottom. We have a page numbering system here. Let's go for a custom look. There's a picture that's going to appear at the top of the header. It's going to be our logo essentially, and here we have the. Let's just change it to make sure list of subs. There we go. So I've actually changed it now, and we're going to go to the print preview and see, oh, it's over here. And here we are, print preview. We're doing portrait mode, so I'm going to guess there's an awful lot because this is a very spread out spreadsheet. So this is page 1, and we go to page 2, and so on. Notice the footer here has a page numbering going on. We have the header here, which is repeating, quote unquote, the header rows for this particular worksheet. Excuse me, I should have pointed that out when you did the page setup. Let me show you. So the rows to repeat at the top is row 1, and the columns to repeat at the left is column A. So page titles. And now, just for fun, this is something I wish I'd had years and years and years ago. The new function help that we have. So let me just scroll down to an empty cell here. So I want to type in a function, but I really can't remember much about it. I think it starts with, it's a future value function. So let's find future value, FV. Oops, I can't remember my. So FE, I need the rate, the n per, oh my word. I try and remember that, and I press OK. And what happens is we throw up a dialog now which says, okay, FE needs these function arguments. So let's type in an interest rate, and we're doing 24 payments. Each payment is going to be 46.15. Present value is 1,000. So essentially this is a loan over 24 months. It's 10% per year, and it's a loan for $1,000, and the type is eventually, am I paying at the beginning of period or end of period? Let's do the end of period. And it's also already telling me what the value is going to be. The future value of this loan is going to be. It's 13 cents. In other words, I paid it off. So there we are, 13 cents. And I didn't have to remember which bit goes where in this formula. It was, the dialogue helps me out. Anyway, spreadsheet. In fact, I'm going to go back to the slides now. And that was WPF, a quick brief overview, and UWP, Universal Windows Platform. Now, this is one of those weird ones for me. I'm really not too sure how many of our customers or how many of you are really targeting UWP. For Windows, for example, you can just write a normal Windows application with WPF or Winforms and wrap it with the Microsoft Windows Bridge framework, and you created a Windows 10 app, a UWP app. There's no need for any specialized UWP controls. Anyway, we're thinking about what to do about UWP. We've added new rating editor for now, a tile bar frame for the tile bar control. Data control has a couple of new features. We've changed the model view model framework for view state and splash screens. Quick demo this time. So the rating editor is fairly simple. It's one of these things. You rate some content on in your application. We can do a kind of custom view, so we show the value as you're doing it. We have some precision markers here, so I can actually say, well, it's like 3.7, or maybe a bit more, maybe 3.8, that kind of thing. Rating editor. The other one I want to show you is the tile bar. Excuse me, tile bar frame. Here we have our tile bar. It's along the top. I can now place it, if you like, along the bottom. Here's the actual view when I navigate to a particular tile. We have subtiles, obviously. Let's put it on the right instead. So we now have all our tiles on the right or on the left. So that's the tile bar frame. As I said, not very much in UWP for this time round. We're still discussing what we're going to do with regard to Windows 10 or that, UWP application. If you're writing Xbox apps, then yes, you need it. And now I shall just switch over to Winforms. And I believe that's going to be you, Paul.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Well,
you've got one of those slides where you bring in everything one by one, haven't you?
No. You see, I decided that, you know what? This is the total of my slide deck. You can see my screen now? Yeah.
I can see it.
That's it. That's all we're doing. Instead, I'm going to go straight to the demo center. I don't want PowerPoint today. We want to show people things. There's a lot of really cool stuff in Winforms. In some cases, it's performing enhancements behind the screen, behind the screen type stuff. But we will jump through and take a look at a few. We're going to start with the data grid control. Obviously, one of our flagship products. Not many apps can get away without displaying data in a grid, and this is certainly one of the best products that I've worked with over the years, so I love it. Now, you did show the filtering, so I'm just going to quickly recap that. Same functionality inside the Winforms version. So here we've got the date filter versus values. Again, you could just tick through, pick your values, go down to a month, or the pre-built functionality, so I can say, you know what, I just want last month, or I want next month and last month, and it's really easy to be able to switch through different values. Clear that filter, exactly the same functionality that we can see throughout. So, limiting text, being able to select all, just the stuff that people are used to seeing inside Excel, and so it's nice to actually have that brought forth into the grid control. Now, I know that it's not a new control, but I'm as excited as if it was, because one of the things that we've introduced inside the tile view is a Kanban board.
Yay. Go on, explain. What is a Kanban board? Come on.
I love this view. So I'm not going to go into the history of the Kanban, but the beauty with the Kanban view is the information is separated into columns or boards. So in most cases, if you're working in an agile process, you'd be familiar with a backlog, so to do, plan, doing, testing, done, etc. Another great thing, for example, you're running a roofing company and you might actually have a board per installer so they can see what work they've got on for the day. There's so many uses for this. But in essence, I can grab one of the cards and I can move it. You can see the indicators showing where it's going to go, drop, and move things between views. So from a visual perspective, very, very impressive layout to be playing with. And the first time I saw this, my first question, of course, was, is it available for ASP? But we're doing Winforms today, so I have to wait. Now, data inside the view can be edited by hitting F2 or double-clicking, and you can see that we're able to provide some custom UI there. So in this case, setting the different label colors, descriptions, checklist elements, adding other resources to the view. So as I said, I think there's an amazing opportunity to do different things with this particular layout, and yeah, I love it. In fact, I could sit here for the next 20 minutes and just stare at it, but we can't, no. And then another a new demo that has been introduced, and hopefully it's not too soon, Julian.
Uh-oh, that's a too soon hashtag here.
Okay, well, tell you what, let's maybe people want to remember the election results from 2012. But regardless, it's a great example of doing data binding between things such as the grid and the map control. I'm going to talk about the map control in a little while separately, but I mean, it's amazing to be able to visualize data. You see as I click through here, here's the grid, I've got the tooltip showing me some key information, and as I drill down you can see the state itself gets selected. So obviously a close call in Colorado, I want to know more, so I can simply drill in either by clicking on the county inside the map or actually double clicking on the grid itself, and you can see again that data binding is taking place where I can go through and see different things. So
and in fact, you're right. It's this is an excellent demo or example, if you like, of how to use a grid with a map and actually be able to provide data visualizations to the end user in a way that they're comfortable with and that they can use.
And we can see that even the performance of the map itself, the shape files, the rendering, everything is looking really quite nice. And the guys did an amazing job, I think, even with this demo, because when people start to see the different way you can use our controls together, it starts them thinking, oh, well, I could do something to do with sales in my regions, or I could do something similar. So it's always nice to see meaningful demos. Now, so we've covered the Excel-inspired filtering, we've got the Kanban, and let's jump back to our demo center. Reporting. Let's talk about our new polling report. Now, you might be asking, what's a polling report? Well, think of it as maybe a survey tool on steroids. See, what we've got here is the ability to present the user with an interactive form. So here's a report. It's inside our report viewer, but I can actually come through and I can't put certain channels in there. Yes, I can. I think how many days? But you can see I can come through and I can just tick the items I want and then submit those results back to my data source and then get a resultant report from that. So at this point we've polled 4 people and here are the results. Really quite nice, thinking that that interaction is built into the reporting engine. So again, be interesting to see where people take that. And then we've got this thing called a character comb. Now I've got visions of, you know, some guy with a long piece of hair at one side, but in actual fact it's referring to this style of information. And we've all had to fill out these types of forms, particularly if the output's going out to another device to be reread or put through some scanning software.
Right.
But what's really nice again here is that we're talking about the interactivity of the reports control. So we're not just saying, hey, we can print this stuff to make it look like a comb. We're talking about the fact that I can type in here. So, last name, first name, and I'm just typing. I don't even have my caps lock on at this point. It's been set up to fill everything out. I'm not worrying about where the details are. I'm just pressing space to move to the next box. So it's really quite nice. Date of birth 16th of June for everybody who wants to send me, yeah, bottles of scotch. And
left off the year there, 1973 or something like that.
74, but that's all right. Now, if we actually have a look inside the designer at how this is implemented, because I found it was really quite nice as well. Basically, there is a new control called a character comb control that gets added to the actual design itself, and that takes care of all that point of separation. So another great thing. Now, while we're on this particular screen, Julian, can you tell me what's different? We're in Winforms, remember?
I'm going to say that those icons look very, very smooth. There's no jaggedness going on.
Especially considering the DPI that I'm running. So yes, we've implemented SVG icons inside our ribbon controls.
SVG being scalar, vector, scalable vector graphics. Yeah,
absolutely. And so particularly with more and more displays coming out at varying high res, the worst thing is either having icons that don't scale very well, or worse, that just sit back looking horrible. The SVG option is now in there inside the ribbon controls. Talk briefly about a couple of enhancements for the charts. End user chart designer, we've added localization, property filtering, and the ability for you to change the designer's caption and icon. We've added some enhancements for crosshairs, which include, but not limited to, being able to do hit testing to obtain the series points, the highlighted series points. You can do HTML formatting in the series labels, value duration formatting, specify background colors. There's a new API that allows you to display the crosshair cursor via code, customizable text settings, and snap modes. So whilst again it points to that whole performance and increasing functionality while not so much having to add new things. I'm going to come back to diagram control. There is quite a few things, Chad, that we want to talk about in there. Layout Manager. Actually, I'm going to cover scheduling first. You've already done Spreadsheet. Spreadsheet's very similar as far as the two-way binding, the password protection, and things like that. Now, the team's been working very hard on performance in the scheduler. So what I'm going to show you here, I'll just maximize this for a second. Here's our scheduler with 50 appointments, which, yeah, that's still a fair number of appointments for a particular day. And yes, I'm showing two resources at the moment. You'll see if I actually increase that to 100 appointments per day, how quickly it was still rendered. So I'm now going to stress this thing out a little bit and tell it I want 500 appointments per day per resource. Now from a...
Yikes!
you wouldn't want to be a salesperson with that many. But obviously the example here would be something like maybe a car rental or somebody that's got a lot of resources out there, and so you're not talking appointments per person, but a booking system, a reception calendar for different things. The emphasis I want to do here is just show you, I'm going to switch that now to say a month view, and you can see again everything is rendered really quickly inside that month. Let's stress it a little bit more and make it to 1,000 per day per resource at the month view. And again, you can see that things are added in. Switch that to maybe the...
I just want to emphasize you're talking 1,000 appointments per day, not 1,000 in a month.
Per resource.
So per resource. So
per resource.
There's a lot of data.
And so from a rendering perspective, and you've got to think, behind the scenes, visually you sort of go, that's a lot of information. But every one of those appointments has been rendered at the precise location on the day or in the month. So from a performance perspective, I would just want to call out, and the teams are doing a phenomenal job when it comes to working through some of these things. So great work there. The automatic form layout doesn't usually get as much love as I'd like to see. It's one of those controls, I think if you started using it, you'll love it, and I definitely recommend you spend a bit of time getting up to speed with it. Some new functionality for this release, being able to quickly turn elements on and off and see the form taking care of itself, as well as the snap ability on the actual expand collapse bar as well, so you can see how it's taking care of things. sometimes people want absolute control over how their forms are going to be laid out, but for basic data applications, there's only so much you can do, and the beauty with the form layout control is it's going to take care of all that formatting, lay everything out nicely so that people can just get on with what they want to do. And I also love the OneNote example where you've got the tabs and the pages.
Yeah.
And, it's really quite nice. PDF viewer, you covered most of it, I think. Absolute love the support for transparencies, right-click, marquee zoom, and being able to zoom in to that level. Smoothness, it's the page control. This page control is now actually a control that you can add to your forms, to your ribbons. It's been added as a custom control so that you don't have to add it in yourself. We've added in the form flattening and some other things that I blogged about, so again, great work. And of course the thumbnail view, which you showed everybody earlier, which I think is phenomenal. So what I want to do, I'm going to switch to the diagram thing, but before I do that, a couple of things inside Visual Studio. First of all, because again quite often some of these things get missed when we try and present, inside the template gallery we've now got some new business solutions. So we've a quick start for PDF application as well as the map application, which is really quite nice. And if you're working with some of the common style applications, you can now also say I want it to be MVVM ready, and it's going to break down the UI and business logic into separate layers. So I know that we've done some webinars recently on MVVM. If you're starting out, or I think that some of these, certainly word processing, the scheduling, being able to create a scheduling application with almost no code with a few mouse clicks. Boom, all done from inside the template gallery.
Basically, you just have to hook it up to your data.
Absolutely.
Well okay, a bit more.
well, with the spreadsheet control, you don't even need to do that because it's going to be based on an open save file access rather than anything else. So unless you're doing two-way data binding. We've introduced something called a behavior manager. Now, it's not something you're going to use to control the kids.
Or even your technical evangelists, yeah.
We're uncontrollable, definitely. One of the things with the behavior manager, here I've just got a standard form. I've added the behavior manager. I'm going to invoke the behaviors, and we can do this thing adding a persistent behavior. For this one, it's a snap window behavior. Now, all I've got behind the scenes is just invoking a new instance of the form, so that there's nothing special going on there. But if I run this and hit new, you'll see that I don't have to do too much work and it will just snap. And if I resize the form, it's snapping to the grid, and again it will snap right next to the other form. So there's some nice functionality with things such as that works. Obviously they're external forms, so we're not talking about docking inside a panel, we're not talking MDI. That's actually looking after two external forms at that level. But the behaviors go a fair bit further than that. So here I'm going to add a label. Note to self, go for 16.2, not 16.1, because otherwise it creates all sorts of interesting behavior. I'm going to turn the auto size mode to none for a second and just give my label a bit of room. On the smart tag, I can actually invoke the behaviors. Now, I've already got the behavior manager sitting inside my project, so that's no drama, but I can then start adding these custom behaviors. Let's add a clock behavior, and at this point I've got a whole heap of options I can alter. So I can say I want my show mode to be date, time, date, just time, etc. But then what I'm going to do is I want to add another label. I'm just going to cheat here, and I'm going to say this time with the behaviors I don't want a clock behavior, I actually want a keyboard indicator, and I want to be based on the caps lock. And not just do I want it to tell me that the caps lock is on or off, I want it to actually warn me when it is. Start my project, and we can see that I've now got a behavior bound. I've now got the date time in real time. I didn't have to do any plumbing for that. My caps lock is off and my caps lock is on. So some nice new behavior, and of course that's going to apply for each new instance that I create as well with my snapping. And the clocks are actually in sync. Wait, and yes, it really is 4:53 a.m.
I was just going to say, only what? I'm glad it's you and not me. Okay.
So that's some nice stuff there. One thing I missed with the Excel stuff is the new formatting rule dialog. So there's that one that was different to WPF. I'm just conscious of time because we want to get some questions in. Let's show you the diagram. So let's go in here and jump to our diagram form. Now all I'm going to do to show you some of the templating is drop in the diagram control. I'm going to dock that to parent. Of course, we have our usual options here saying I want to create the ribbon menus and toolboxes and all that sort of stuff. You'll now notice we've got two extra options. We've got add data binding controller and add org chart controller. This simplifies setting up the diagram controls. If I choose that option, it's going to add this controller into the project, and of course at this point I can bind that data source as well. And of course we also have a new template designer, which comes along with some cool pre-built formatting. We can drop this in and you can see that it knows, hey, I was working on the org chart, so it's automatically gone with the fact that an org chart might have full name, title, email address, photo, etc., and that is bound to those data elements, which I think is really quite cool with the different options, so you can sort of set it up how you want. And of course these are just individual elements that you can format and control inside that as well. So if I was going to bind that to a data source, it would choose or use that template that I worked on. Other things for the diagram control, there's some changes to the way that we can do layouts. We've now got a circular layout, which appears in both the WPF and the Winforms one, as well as, let's see if I can get through the list of all the different things with ribbon control, diagram control. We have, my list is extensive.
You know
circular
what?
layout.
We ought to do a webinar about the diagram control.
I would
really
love to do that.
Yeah.
Compact tree view, tip over tree view. We've got new settings allowing you to configure item spacing, alignment, directions, new data binding. Integrated dog-based UI, more like you see in Visual Studio. Item protection. We've got a print preview now inside the diagram control. We've got a new image item allowing you to display images on the diagram's surface, including loading from a file or stream, serialization to XML as raw data, stretching modes, and contextual ribbon control. And the organizing diagrams with containers, right angle route customization or route customization. The diagram control got lots and lots of love, and from customers that I've talked to, everybody's loving what they can do with it. There's a new feature inside the, let's have a look, say the progress panel. So you go progress panel, and as well as having all the usual things, you can also now set the animation to line, which gives you, depending on the style that you've got set, but will allow you basically to implement something similar to what you see inside Visual Studio with a marker going across the page. So if I was to anchor that, say, top left and top right, and actually resize it. Then, so the anchor is going to take care of if the user resizes the screen, like so. That can give you a really nice soft visualization at the top of the screen. I just need to set my skins and things up on that. But it's really, again, just a nice addition to that whole suite of things. Other things that happen in Winforms layout, for the layout manager, there's some other features in that. It's just, there's so many things on my list, Julian. But I think what we need to do is to jump over to the questions.
I think we should. I think we should. I think we've identified a couple of webinars that we ought to be doing in the fairly near future. So I've made some notes, and let's see what we can do.
Showing people some of the real-world examples that customers have worked with, you know, with some assistance, so that people can actually see what's going on and what can be achieved.
Yeah.
So questions.
Amanda.
Hey guys, we had a lot of questions come in. Some of them I don't know if you already covered, you know, as you went. Let's see. Can you have fixed rows and display the auto filter row? That was during your initial, Julian, during your app.
That was your grid one. Yeah. I've got to say, Matt was one of the first people on the call very early too, so I'll point that out.
Yes, yes, the fixed row is about the data, not necessarily the filter row. The filter row appears at the top anyway. So I'm going to say, yes, it is possible.
I'm just jumping through the questions now as well, Amanda. Can we expect some of the features of the map to make its way to the map dashboard item in the dashboards product?
Yes, I think so. Yes, I'd have to see what the development pipeline is like for getting, you know, stuff from the actual controls over to the dashboard. Some things seem to take a while, and then some things are really quick. So yes, it's obviously one of those things that we want to do. We want to improve our dashboard. There's a lot of competition out there for dashboards and the like. So I can't give you any details about timelines or schedules or anything like that, but certainly features you see in the individual controls should appear in the dashboard bit by bit.
There was a question, there are a couple of technical questions here that I'm going to need, or Julia, I'm going to make it your problem, get back to people on, such as, is the schedule performance just as good without using the async mode? That's something, John, that I'll need to revisit with you. There's a question here about snap reporting or the snap control. Where are we heading with it, Julian?
It's still a part of our reporting suite. I don't believe we did anything for it in 16.2. So it's still there. I'd have to check with the team, to be honest, to see what we're planning for it in 2017, and maybe, you know, be able to talk to that in some fashion, maybe a blog post or something like that, just to say, yeah, Snap, it's going to do this, it's going to do that. We'll see.
Cool. Obviously, there were a number of enhancements specifically to reporting and document server and dashboard. So in our January webinars, we can cover off some of those specific features. Julian, would you like to make any comments about .NET Core?
Oh, what? .NET Core, big, I mean, .NET Standard. Yeah.
I think that the thing that I'd probably add here is, and one of the things we're doing with our regular meetups with customers around the globe, is asking what people want to see as far as functionality in .NET Core. Like, what applications are you developing with it? Email the team or email Julian and I, and it's a big discussion. I was at a meetup in Sydney a couple of weeks ago now, and nobody in the group were doing anything with .NET Core. And so it was like, okay, well...
The thing about .NET Core for me is it's more about web than what we've been talking about today, which is thick client Windows. That's the feeling I get from talking to customers, is they're more worried about it with regard to, you know, Azure and putting it up there and using it in a web application in some form. .NET Core and Winforms, no. It's just not going to happen. Winforms is stable. It requires, you know, the full .NET 4.6 or, you know, earlier versions. Same with WPF, to be honest. I don't know what Microsoft are doing with regard to .NET Core and UWP. Be interesting to go and find out if I can. But I think .NET Core is, you know, a topic for another day in web programming webinar or something like that.
And there's a few comments coming through, such as why are we paying little attention to UWP? And it's not that we're not paying attention to it. One of the biggest challenges with UWP, it requires Windows 10. Now we've got, and it's a universal problem for software developers, because they can't upgrade their applications to UWP if they've got customers that aren't running Windows 10. It's going to be interesting to see very much where Microsoft take that thing, and as Julian mentioned earlier, you can wrap a Winforms application or a WP application using the Microsoft Bridge to make it a UWP application. So it's a tricky one. Do we invest thousands upon thousands of hours bringing all our controls, making them just UWP?
Yeah, exactly. That's the issue. Do we do that, or do we push people towards you know, the functionality in Winforms or the functionality in WPF? And to be honest, there are different messages, if you like, subliminal messages perhaps, coming from Microsoft about UWP. There's the whole Windows Mobile issue. You know, what's happening about that? I'm sure people who have Windows phones know that, you know, their upgrades have petered out, or they've been cancelled, or they've been postponed, and so on and so forth. So it's one of those things that we're looking at. To be honest, we don't get much demand for UWP. It's, you know, c'est la vie, as they say in France.
Kirsten's asked if we're going to be looking at things like speech recognition. I actually answered no, probably a little bit too quickly in the box there, Kirsten. The question really would be, what sort of things do you expect from a controls vendor to be able to do with speech recognition?
The big issue with speech recognition is the amount of processing you have to do on the server for it. Cortana and Siri is not just what you see on your device. There's a huge infrastructure of servers out there doing the actual recognition. That is not something we can do. Really, really no. Unless somebody comes out with some wonderful open source speech recognition library, it's not something that's going to happen, really. Honest.
Off topic, talking about the Xamarin controls. And again, we want to hear from people. We want to know what controls specifically you're looking to use. I surveyed 50 plus people recently, and the comment was, there's nothing that we can't do now in Xamarin. There's none of your standard controls that we really need to see inside Xamarin Forms.
I totally agree. In fact, I would say that we get more feedback about Xamarin than we do about UWP, just to continue that train of thought. Xamarin is something that we're looking into. There is a team starting development. Hopefully we'll have something ready for 17.1 in 6 months' time or whatever. But it's one of those runtimes that since Microsoft have bought Xamarin, And since they've added it to Visual Studio as a free option, it's growing more and more important. So expect to see something from us. That's all I can say.
There's a few people asking questions about the other webinars. So what I'm going to do is just bring up the What's New page so that people can also have a look in terms of why are we not showing, or yeah, is it going to be a VCL webinar? Is there going to be an XAF webinar? So there will be no specific XAF webinar. However, if you want to have, there's going to be some videos coming out showing what's going on. If you want to have a look at what is new in XAF, there's certainly been a lot of things, so just head to devexpress.com and hit the What's New button. You'll come to this page and you can see that there's enhancements in the mobile platform. I've had a lot of good discussions with people as to what they're going to do there, and you can see the data analytics enhancements and enhancements for ASP, security and core. So there's already some blog posts and there'll be some videos posted, and the same for VCL and CodeRush, and I think there was a question about XPO in there as well. But we are way over time, Mr. Bucknall.
We are indeed. I'll just add that VCL will be next week. So
there is one for VCL.
Yeah, I've got to set it up. That's all. It's probably Tuesday.
Okay.
Okay. There we go.
Oh,
over to
I went through my slides too quickly.
I was asking that same question about VCL. When I saw that, I said, huh, we got to schedule that.
Indeed we do. I shall write up a description for it. But yes.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. All right, everybody. Like we mentioned before, today's webinar will be available later on our DevExpress YouTube channel. I posted the link in the chat box. And that is it for this one. Thank you so much to Paul and Julian. Thank you all for joining us. And, of course, thank you for choosing DevExpress. Bye-bye.